konsepto po ng ating physical apprehension, pag natikitan, dapat po umuwi na yung motorista kasi in the first place, bawal po siyang mag-drive dahil bawal yung sasakyan niya sa araw na yun.
Ano po? Huwag po tayo, sir. Hop! Hoy!
Alam ko sir, mamayang mga 8, mga 5 pa. Oo, yung coding ko.
So, paano yun, sir?
Wala tayong magagawa sir. Ganun po talaga. Kailangan po natin sumunod.
From the nation's capital, all sides, all the time, I'm Robbie Alampay.
And I'm Sean Yao. The big story tonight.
More motorists were apprehended by the MMDA during the implementation of the expanded number coding scheme in Metro Manila.
But some of them refused to cooperate, saying they're supposed to be exempted from this rule. Justine Punsala with the report.
Ano po? Huwag po tayo, sir. Hop! Hoy!
This motorist was trying to flee from MMDA officers after being apprehended for violating the number coding scheme. The MMDA has started issuing tickets for violators after a 3-day dry run.
Ang alam ko sir, mamayang mga 8, mga 5 pa. Oo, yung coding ko.
So, paano yun, sir?
Wala tayong magagawa sir. Ganun po talaga. Kailangan po natin sumunod.
Some tried to explain their way out of their violation. Among them is this Grab driver who is out with his wife.
Grab naman ako. Wala namang problema. Di ba? Exempted naman yung Grab sa ano, di ba? Kaya ginagamit ko lang yung kumbaga yung pass ko para madala ko sa orthopedic kasi naka-schedule siya for therapy.
Some drivers also refused to cooperate with traffic enforcers. This driver of a pickup introduced himself as an employee of the Land Transportation Office. Under the coding scheme, marked government vehicles are exempted from the program. However, his pickup truck did not have any LTO marks.
Wala naman po exemption, kaso ayaw niya lang pong ibigay yung lisensya niya. Total, pwede naman po kayo manikit ng plaka lang po. Tapos i-ano na lang po natin refusal to surrender driver's license.
Violators will be fined 300 pesos for violating the number coding. But for the third offense, the driver must undergo seminar.
Ang konsepto po ng ating physical apprehension, pag natikitan, dapat po umuwi na yung motorista kasi in the first place, bawal po siyang mag-drive dahil bawal yung sasakyan niya sa araw na yun.
Those who will repeatedly violate the number coding will be suspended or have their license revoked. For News 5, Justine Punsalang. We are One News.
Another petition was filed before the Supreme Court challenging the legality of the no-contact apprehension policy being implemented in Manila and 4 other cities in the metro. Attorney Humaan Paa filed this petition asking the SC to issue a temporary restraining order to immediately stop the NCAP implementation in the city of Manila. One of the grounds of Paa's petition was violation of due process. Paa says he was not given the proper notice and questioned the exorbitant amount of the fine for his alleged traffic violations. Paa recalled that he was supposed to register his SUV in Quezon City last June, but was told that he needed to pay first the fines amounting to over 20,000 pesos. Have you been sent a letter in the mail?
I have.
You have? What was your violation?
I think coding.
Okay.
Coding din. I mean, all honesty. But I don't remember a fine on the level of 20,000. I don't know what that violation is for.
It could have been a lot of violations already. I know because my brother got sent a letter, but the car that was being fined, we had sold already months and months and months prior. So medyo nagkakaproblema nga doon. Hindi, totoo talaga yun kasi
Okay. But
that's what he said. That's what he told our mom.
But I don't know. Ang alam ko, I don't know if I remember the fine print correctly, but you do have a process for challenging.
Yes, you can
do have a
contest.
way. But anyway, we'll talk a bit more about that later on. In the meantime, over at the lower house, a congressman has filed a resolution calling on 3 House committees to to jointly investigate the NCAP, that's the No Contact Apprehension Policy being implemented by the MMDA. Here to talk more about this resolution, we have Quezon City 4th District Representative Marvin Rillo. He's joining us live via Zoom. Congressman Rillo, welcome to The Big Story.
All right, what's your...
Good evening, everyone. Good evening.
Good evening, Congressman. We started, talking about our own experiences. We're not really sure about how everything works. We do know it's real, but let's start with what's the problem with the NCAP?
Well, alam nyo, one thing's for sure, I want to tell all the viewers, or all your viewers, that I am not against NCAP. In fact, I am supporting NCAP. What I am against is the policies that they do, no? Like, for example, tayo or lawmakers here, if you create the Constitution, before you present it to the people, it must be approved by Congress. And dapat walang loopholes yung batas, maayos yung batas, so that it will be implemented properly. The same goes with NCAP. The bigger picture is mapakaganda ng NCAP. It's very good. It's one way of disciplining our drivers. But the thing is, the law itself, ang daming flaws. And that's, yun ang gusto natin ayusin sa Kongreso.
Do you agree, Congressman Rillo, that this violates due process?
I believe, yeah. Because that's, yun pa lang yung unang sinabi ko everybody deserves due process. May you be a lawmaker, a law abider, or a lawbreaker. Everyone deserves due process. But how could you get due process here when the law itself pertaining NCAP, madaming flaws? For example, I'll give you one example. Kanina, I was cruising along Quezon Avenue on my way to UP, no? May ambulansya. Gusto dumaan, nagwawang-wang na. Alam mo ba, maniniwala kayo mga kotse at saka mga motorsiklo, ayaw magbigay ng daan sa ambulansya. Because natatakot siguro sila, mahuli ng NCAP, Quezon Avenue yun. Alam nyo, dapat mas pag-aralan ng Kongreso yung batas na ito kung paano re-resolve yung maliliit na issues. Second, dapat ang batas uniform. Nag-usap nga kami ni Mayor Joy Belmonte. Ako, sabi ko sa kanya, ma'am, I am nothing against NCAP. I am for NCAP. Let's just fix the infrastructure and the laws behind NCAP. She will give me data para makatulong sa akin para pag binalangkas namin sa Kongreso at piniresenta sa tao, maayos na po ang NCAP.
Sir, could you just be more specific about that? When you say that there are things in the laws that created that empowers the NCAP is flawed. I mean, give us an example of what is it in the existing laws and policies that really enable a wrong implementation of the NCAP?
Yes, for example, if you're cruising along one street na covered ng NCAP, nakuha ka ng camera, nag-swerving ka, dapat nakalagay doon sa batas at meron kang certain meters na re-reviewin yung violation. Ay nakalagay lang doon yung mismong actual na nangyari. Yung pala, pag tinignan mo ko 10 meters away, kaya pala nag-swerving tong kotse na to dahil ginagawa yung kali. So dapat, you have to be more specific sa batas pagdating sa NCAP just to protect our drivers. Pangalawa, in times of calamities, for example, ang Quezon City in Manila, prone po ito sa baha. Siyempre, bumabaha. Siyempre, may stoplight. Sige, dire-diretso ka. Hindi ka naman pwede huminto sa kalagitnaan ng baha. Dire-diretso ka. Na may stoplight, inabutan ka ng red, gumo ka, di huli ka. Dapat nakalagay din sa batas natin sa NCAP. In times of calamities, we have to suspend NCAP para naman may adjustment naman sa mga drivers natin. So, ang dami po nito na kailangan natin i-discuss. At we have to be more specific in terms of dealing sa NCAP na ito.
Yes,
Again,
pero
sabi ko, napakaganda po ng NCAP.
Pero Congressman, no, sa dami nga ng kailangan ayusin na butas, na mga butas, no? And there's so many possible violations, possible exemptions, possible things. On one hand, pwede naman pong i-contest itong mga huli, so to speak. Hindi pa ba sapat yun, sir? Dahil kung aayusin natin or tatakpan natin lahat ng butas, baka kailan pa po ma-implement or maisabatas itong NCAP?
Well, alam nyo, ang akin lang naman, that's true. It will take time. It will not be very, very easy for us to come up with laws that would, protect the right in public. It will be studied. Public hearings must be held, inviting all sectors sa ating community that affects NCAP. Then we will do yung IRR and yung infrastructure nitong NCAP na ito. At alam mo, sa isang bagay na napakaganda, hindi dapat natin minamadali. Because minsan, sa sobrang ganda, minsan nawawala din kagandahan ng programa dahil sa kakamadali at minamadali natin. It is very beautiful. Ang akin lang, we should be uniform. Kung ano ang batas sa Quezon City, batas sa Manila, batas sa Parañaque, batas sa San Juan, iisa lang dapat. And yun din yung nung nag-usap kami ni Mayor Joy, yun din ang gusto niya, she will provide me data, Because ang akin lang, I am not against NCAP. I am for NCAP, but we have to be protecting our people. Na yung mga batas na ito, ang daming flaws. Tulad yung isa, si Atty. Pa. He paid more than 20,000 pesos. Then nangyari, kasalanan ba ng tao kung maling address yung pinagpadalahan nung sulat na siya yung nagkaroon ng mga violations, hindi na naman nakasakad sa NCAP yun. We have to be more specific, di ba? Pagdating sa mga bagay na yun. So, ang daming butas. Ang dami po natin dapat ayusin. And I guess, tingin ko, 6 months, matatapos yan. Then we will present it to the people. And if we present it to the people, wala na silang rason para mag-request.
Congressman, kanina pinag-usapan natin yung policy, pinag-usapan natin yung batas, things that can be improved. We also mentioned the infrastructure. What kind of infrastructure do you actually envision? Because, precisely, as I understand it, itong no-contact apprehension policy is also to aid and to solve the fact that we don't have enough manpower. Wala tayong MMDA sa bawat kanto. Wala tayong pulis sa bawat kanto para bantayan bawat pothole, bawat ilag, and so on. For you to enable that, you'll need a lot of technology, a lot of investments in the infrastructure, as you said, and then the software to cover every single scenario that people can imagine. Given the option instead to just allow for due process and let people question what's on record and what's actually on camera, that versus trying to work for a perfect system, wouldn't the investment rather just be in the ability for people to challenge?
Yes, that's a very, very good question. You know what? Ang akin lang, that's the reason why the more we need to sit down and talk about this NCAP, alam mo bakit? Alam mo, hindi tulad tayo ng Amerika, na halos 90% maayos sa kanila. Dito, pag gumawa tayo ng batas, we need to adjust doon sa ating kultura, sa ating lugar. Alam naman natin, kunwari, for example, yung swerving. One example, swerving. Sa Amerika, pag unang ka ng camera na si swerving ka, huli ka na kagad. Pero dito, kailangan mag-adjust tayo. Bakit? Dahil dito, ang daming ginagawang kalye, wala naman nagbabantay bawat kantong enforcer. So mag-a-adjust yung batas doon sa ating estado. For example, alam naman natin marami bawat kantong ginagawa. Yung adjustment ng batas natin sa NCAP, the company must make sure that at least 10 meters na bumabiyahe yung kotse, makikita niya kung ano nangyari, anong reason, bakit siya nag-swerving. So yun yung sinasabi ko, na we have to adjust kung ano yung meron tayo sa ating bansa. For example, yung mga bike lanes. Alam mo yung bike lanes, hindi pa kasama yan sa ating LTO pag nag-exam ka. So, kailangan mag-adjust na naman yung NCAP sa alam ng tao. So, yun yung sinasabi ko. We have to check out the whole infrastructure, the whole laws, na nagsasabi kung ano dapat ang gawin sa NCAP natin.
Okay.
So, dapat ayusin. Ang dami dapat ayusin. Ang akin lang, bago i-present sa tao, ayusin muna natin. That's it. But
Okay.
I am for NCAP.
Okay,
because
Congressman.
it will really work sa ating bansa.
Okay, Congressman Rillo, maraming salamat po. Quezon City 4th District Representative Marvin Rillo. And join us in this conversation. Our big question tonight, should the no-contact apprehension policy continue? Share your thoughts on our Facebook and YouTube live streams or post a tweet with the hashtag #TheBigStory. We will read some of your comments later on in the program. And then after the break, let's talk about the government's crackdown on sugar hoarders. We will be speaking with Danilo Fausto of the Philippine Chamber of Agriculture and Food. Keep it here on One News.
Another fundamental requirement for growth and increased employment will be the availability of cheap, reliable energy. This even comes under the category of ease of doing business. If we are to attract investors, both local and foreign, to set up shop here in the Philippines. At present, our demand for energy far exceeds our reliable supply. We must increase the level of energy production. We must look at every possible option that would be appropriate for the Philippine situation. There is some room to expand our present power supply through existing power sources, but this is only to a very limited extent. We must build new power plants. We must take advantage of all the best technology that is now available, especially in the areas of renewable energy. Our search for new power sources should always be with an eye to improving the mix of the energy supply between traditional and renewable sources. The technology on renewable energy is progressing rapidly, and many of these technologies are appropriate for the Philippines. I believe that it is time also to re-examine our strategy towards building nuclear power plants in the Philippines. We will comply, of course, with the International Atomic Energy Agency regulations for nuclear power plants as they have been strengthened after Fukushima. In the area of nuclear power, there have been new technologies developed that allow smaller scale modular nuclear plants and other derivations thereof. Once again, PPPs will play a part in support as funding in this period is limited.
Watching the big story here on One News. Authorities led by the Bureau of Customs raided warehouses that are suspected of having hoarded thousands of sacks of sugar. Here's the report.
Back-to-back raids were conducted by authorities in sugar warehouses located in Bulacan and Pampanga on Thursday. The raids were conducted by the Customs, Agriculture Department, Sugar Regulatory Administration, DTI, and AFP. The agencies acted upon the order of President Marcos Jr. to exercise its visitorial powers to all customs-bonded warehouse and to check their inventory to see if there is hoarding of sugar. In San Jose del Monte, Bulacan, the BOC padlocked 2 warehouses filled with stocks of refined white sugar. The warehouse is owned by a Filipino-Chinese businessman named Victor Chua. According to Chua, he bought the sugar supply from the local market. Chua explained he has no permit to trade because his business is only centered on selling and warehousing of sugar.
Hindi naman po ako trader eh. Marketing lang ako eh. Hindi ko na kailangan siguro yun.
However, the SRA says all warehouses with local and imported products like sugar should be registered. Chua voluntarily surrendered himself to the San Jose del Monte, Bulacan police.
Very cooperative naman si Mr. Chua at mas pinarapat niyang pumunta sa ating police station para doon mapag-usapan kung ano man ang mga kailangan na mga dokumento patungkol dito sa kanyang bodega ng asukal. So doon naman naipaliwanag niya naman lahat sa mga kinauukulan.
His workers, on the other hand, were surprised with the sudden closing of the warehouse.
Malungkot kami. Siyempre, wala na kami trabaho eh. Dito lang naman kami kumikita ng para makakain pamilya namin. Paano na kami ngayon? Lalo ngayon, pasukan pa eh.
Chua was released after providing his statement to the police. But he admits he's worried about his business as the closure of his warehouses meant that he could no longer deliver sugar to his clients, which include restaurants and supermarkets.
Siyempre, na-perwisyo rin yung mga biyahe, lalo na may mga commitment kami sa mga food industry. Yun nga, kanina tawag nga ng tawag eh. Tapos may mga rules pa naman yung mga food industry na pag hindi mo na-deliver ng takdang oras, kakaltasan kanila ng 1%.
Chua is still hoping that the government will soon allow his warehouses to continue their operations. BOC says some 42,700 sacks of sugar were confiscated from Chua's warehouse. This translates to over 2,100 metric tons, which costs around 215 million pesos. Arian Kalumbiran, We Are One News.
To give us his insights about the alleged sugar supply hoarding, we have with us on the show Mr. Danilo Fausto, President of the Philippine Chamber of Agriculture and Food Incorporated, is joining us via Zoom. Welcome to the big story, Mr. Fausto.
Mr. Fausto,
good evening.
Yeah, Mr. Fausto, let's just make it clear. Do you or do you not believe that hoarding is actually happening and as a result, price manipulation?
Definitely, there's an artificial shortage that's being created because based on our data, we have no shortage of sugar. From the data we have 171,000 metric tons mostly coming from the importation of the 200,000 metric tons that's coming in June and July, and some more are coming. I think the balance about 20,000 metric tons are still coming. And 75% of this is committed to the industrial users. And the balance about 45,000 is for the refineries, you know. And these are only from the refineries and the imported. But we know that there are more from the stocks of the warehouses. So we have asked, and we are happy that raids are being done, because artificial shortage is being created. That's why the prices are spiked. And from the chamber's point of view, myself, our plant is using sugar, and we were able to buy sugar for our raw materials. And what we point out is that in the times of harvest, because the harvest is now beginning, there are 8 sugar mills that's starting in Negros and about 1 in Pasig. That's supposed to start at September. Some of them already started this August. Our point is, if there is a harvest going on in all products, there should be no importation. Now we have to see first if the current production that is being started now will not be sufficient. Then we import. We are not against importation if there's really shortage, but not putting in importing these products or agricultural products when we are harvesting. You will be killing farmers and producers. For sugar industry, we have 700,000 laborers directly employed in sugar and about 6 million indirectly in the industry. These sugar areas are what we know are the breeding grounds of insurgents, and we do not like these people who are working marangal na nagtatrabaho. You don't remove them from having these jobs. Mamumundok yung mga yan. We will have more problems than we have solutions.
Mr. Fausto, nobody seems to be surprised. As you said, you welcome these raids on these warehouses, on these hoarders. But at the same time, given the discussions in the past days about an artificial shortage, once you talk about hoarding, nobody really seems to be surprised. In fact, we almost expected at some point or another that there's going to be a warehouse that's going to be raided. To that point, I just want to ask, how common is this? Or for that matter, how common knowledge is this? And why is this taking place, I mean, almost as a matter of fact?
Year in, year out, Roby, this is being done in all agricultural products, in rice, now in onions, now sugar. There's really some hoarding, and we have to penalize these people. The Congress should do some laws that will make it a criminal offense. It's an economic sabotage, depriving our people of food. That's why prices are going high, not because of the supply problem. It's because of artificial shortage made by the traders. Traders are really making a killing on rice, on onions, on sugar, everywhere. And the one that is suffering are the farmers, and then the processors who are supposed to be using this for export and for our own consumption.
All right, thank you so much for your time. Danilo Fausto, President of the Philippine Chamber of Agriculture and Food Incorporated. After the break, towering big man Kai Sotto has arrived in the country as Gilas Pilipinas continues their preparations for the fourth window of the 2023 FIBA World Cup Asian qualifiers. That and more when the big story returns. Keep it here on One News.
To my fellow Filipinos, ang aking mga minamahal na kababayan, batid ko na hindi madali ang ating pinagdaraanan sa nakaraang higit na 2 taon. Alam ko rin na ang bawat isa sa inyo ay ginagawa ang lahat ng inyong makakaya upang patuloy na harapin ang lahat na pagsubok sa kasalukuyan. I do not intend to diminish the risks and the challenges that we face in this turbulent time in global history. And yet, I see sunlight filtering through these dark clouds. We have assembled the best Filipino minds to help navigate us through this global crisis. We will endure. Let our Filipino spirit ever remain undimmed. I know this in my mind. I know it in my heart. I know it in my very soul. The state of the nation is sound. As for the horror stories that we have heard about the poor quality of educational materials and supplies that are being given to our schools, this must end. Our children must always be equipped with the best that we can provide. Ang edukasyon ay ang tangi nating pamana sa ating mga anak na hindi mawawaldas. Kaya anumang gastusin sa kanilang pag-aaral ay hindi tayo nagtitipid. Hindi rin tayo nagtatapon. And once again, I am not talking about history or what is being taught. I am talking about materials that are necessary for effective teaching in this day and age. Children now need connectivity to the internet. They need devices to use. They need computers, educational tools.
Still watching the big story here on One News. With exactly 1 week away from their first match in the FIBA World Cup Asian qualifiers, Gilas center Kai Sotto finally returns home. Let's check in on the national team's preparations in this report by Marty Bautista.
The Gilas Pilipinas men have begun their training preparations for the fourth window of the 2023 FIBA World Cup Asian qualifiers at the Meralco Gym in Pasig City. The Samahang Basketball ng Pilipinas recently announced their initial 24-man preliminary pool. Apart from the squad being amped up with the help of Utah Jazz Jordan Clarkson and Adelaide 36ers Kai Sotto, some of the new additions also include PBA standouts like Scottie Thompson, Arvin Tolentino, Jamie Malonzo, and Kevin Alas.
Malaking bagay sa isang player na mapaglaro international at dala-dala mo yung buong Pilipinas. Naka-pressure at the same time excited and truly best nga and honored na makapaglaro para sa bayan.
For veteran guard Kiefer Ravena, this Gilas Pilipinas 24-man preliminary pool is definitely a statement going up against the powerhouse Lebanon and Saudi Arabia.
You know, it's always a welcome addition that we have Jordan Clarkson and Kai Sotto playing for this window. But at the same time, kung sino man yung mga malaline up dito, alam namin na kayang-kaya naming gampanan yung mga roles namin para makapagbigay ng panalo and redemption para sa Gilas.
Jordan Clarkson is set to arrive Manila tomorrow, August 19. The Gilas men will first face Lebanon on August 25 in the country's capital, Beirut. Shortly after, they will go against Saudi Arabia at the Mall of Asia Arena on August 29. For News 5, Marty Bautista, We Are One News.
And that's the big story tonight. For more updates, follow News 5, The Philippine Star, and Business World Online. You may also log on to onenews.ph for more in-depth analysis. I'm Robbie Alampay.
The big story is also available via Signal Play. Make a free account now at signalplay.com and stream One News anytime, anywhere. I'm Sean Yao. Masks on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines.
We are One News, all sides, all the time.